In this video, I'm going to be talking about the belief, the fundamental human belief that we are not good enough as we are, how that drives our behavior, how we negatively reinforce that behavior through self-fulfilling prophecies, where this belief stems from at least a little bit. And then finally, what our ultimate goal really wants to be in life and with our healing process. So stay tuned. My name is Adam. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. I'm a freedom and clarity coach. Before we begin, I just want to let you know I have a free energy clearing. It's in the description below if you want to download it. It helps with past traumas, doing some energy work, energy clearing, releasing trapped emotions. It'll help you bring yourself much more into a state of peace and presence and joy. Anyway, there is this fundamental human belief that is wired in every single person on the planet in varying degrees. And this belief is that we are not good enough as we are. It is really the fundamental essence of all human suffering. It comes at us from every single conceivable angle, from religion to TV to movies to parents to trauma. It's everywhere. And the thing is, if we're not aware that this is what's running the show underneath everything, we can spend our entire life creating, doing, inactivity, accomplishing, all from a lack-based belief set that never really completes itself no matter what we accomplish, because underneath our motivation is to prove that we're enough. But if we're not enough, then everything that we do leaves us still feeling like we're not enough, and we end up in this like endless hamster wheel, like in hell sort of cycle. So first I want to explain a little bit about my struggle with this. I could pick 1,000 stories from which to tell, but I'll tell a little bit the story of wanting to be a rock star when I was a kid. When I was a kid, I wanted to be a rock star. I wanted to be famous, essentially. I wanted to be a rock star, but I also wanted to be famous. I had this big drive and desire to be famous. It's been sort of one of the fundamental lessons in my life. I've had many, but this is one of the main ones I've been learning, is breaking like any sort of addiction to status or fame on any level. Now, I did truly love music. I did since I was 3 years old. One of my first loves was the Beatles. I completely fell in love with the Beatles music. I used to listen to the Beatles all the time. I knew like all of the albums, the songs, like what side. We had records at that time still that were left over. I knew what side like each song was on and what album. I learned how to play instruments at a very young age. And I wanted to go forth and make this dream a reality. When I was 10, I got my first guitar. I started playing. I took lessons every week. And then by the time I was like 15, 16, I started writing songs. And the first 3-song demo I ever recorded got into the hands of a record producer. And the record producer, surprisingly, was actually interested in hearing me play. Yeah, he thought I was a really good guitar player, and I guess he liked the music, and he wanted to come see a live show. So we put together a band. I didn't have a band with other kids at that time. We hired 2 musicians, 2 professional musicians, and within 2 weeks, put up a show at the Roxy in Los Angeles. Now, I only had 3 songs written when I got the gig at the Roxy, so I had to hurry up and write a bunch of other songs and then practice for 2 weeks and perform in front of this guy when I never really performed in front of anybody, playing and singing my own music ever. So I worked as hard as I could. It was very difficult because I had dragged myself through all this resistance and horror and fear and like tiredness and all this stuff I struggled with my whole life. Finally, the show comes, and I'll never forget getting up on stage in front of a bunch of my friends and just feeling awful. I remember feeling like so deeply like just a piece of shit. And primarily because of this underlying belief, the show didn't go that great. Part of the reason it didn't go that great was because I was new. I didn't have a lot of practice. I wasn't really ready yet. I needed to like play gigs over and over and over again and put in kind of the groundwork and the footwork that is necessary to really build a dream like this and to get good at something, even though I had some natural talent. What happened invariably was the record producer said that he liked me, but that I wasn't ready. I wasn't good enough yet. Like my voice wasn't there, the performance wasn't there. He wasn't necessarily saying no, but I had this big hope that I was just going to get signed that night. Now, I already kind of had started dabbling in drugs, and ultimately what happened was he was like, okay, keep practicing, get better, and then maybe I'll come back in the future, and if you're better, then we'll talk. I just fell off the face of the earth and went into drug addiction. Now, my point of all this is the reason that I went into drug addiction, the reason that I didn't have it at the time was because of this deep-seated belief that I wasn't good enough. And a lot of what was driving me was trying to prove that I was. I wanted the fame so much because I believed that the fame and the record deal would be a sign that I was enough. And this is the thing with so many kids today that are raised in this Hollywood sort of instant gratification generation. They want fame so bad, so fast, for nothing. And the reason is the same pattern that I had. I believed it's what would make me feel loved and lovable. But because I didn't deeply enough and was yearning for it so much, when I didn't get what I wanted right away, I gave up. I had already kind of gave up. I was already doing drugs, and there was many reasons for this. It was part of my soul path. I wasn't meant to make it then. There's all these other lessons that I talked about before. I'm not going to go too much into it now. Ultimately, it was just sort of meant to go that way. But this is also the reason, because this is one of the things I've been healing, is the belief that I wasn't enough. So when we have these yearnings for things and then we don't get them, we'll quit. And we quit because even though there is a love for maybe what we're doing and what we're trying to achieve, underneath, if there's enough of a hole, we won't be able to continue. It's why this is one of the most important wounds to heal. So where does the belief that we're not enough come from? Everywhere. It's so programmed into humanity. It's a very important thing to kind of get in touch with within yourself. I mean, Christianity has original sin. That's one example. Basically, you're born flawed and fucked up, and essentially you need to apologize for your existence, which was always weird to me because I was like, well, wait a second, like, why am I going to walk around apologizing for my existence? Isn't that fucking God's fault? Aren't you the dumbass that created me imperfect? Why do I have to apologize to you? Isn't it your mistake? And if you want me to apologize for your mistake, why bother? Because even if I do, it's never going to be enough because you're crazy, so we're stuck. I never got that. But that if you look at just that belief, and that there's so many other examples, fundamentally what that's saying is you were created flawed. You're bad as you are. You're not enough. And if you look at how this has driven so many people, I wouldn't say most, but a large percentage of the accomplishments in this world, especially by men, were made through the yearning to prove your value, the yearning to prove that you are enough. The problem is what happens is people will accomplish thing after thing after thing after thing, and they may be great feats, but they're never happy. They're never happy because they're still running on the belief that I'm not enough. So now it's like I have this, but that's not enough. Now I have this, and this isn't enough, and this isn't enough. This is the essence of addiction. It's like trying to fill the void of feeling like a worthless piece of shit. And the thing is, when we push from this place, this belief that we're not enough, we tend to create scenario after scenario after scenario to show ourselves that we're not, because that's what we're reflecting back to ourselves. So whatever we draw in will confirm to us that we're not enough, whether it's positive or negative. We'll draw in people that are abusive. We'll draw in failures, and then we'll be like, oh, I'm not enough because my belief is I'm not enough. So when I fail, that means I'm not enough. Or we'll draw in successes, and we'll be like, oh, this success isn't enough. I'm not successful enough. When you believe you are enough, the whole lens changes. Every time you fail, it's like, oh, well, this is leading me to more success because I am enough, and this is testing me and helping me to get better. And then every little success you have is enough. The question is, what is your fundamental driver and motivator for what you're doing, for the actions that you're taking? Where does this come from? How do you boil it down? So the answer is not to stop taking action. It's not to not be in activity. It's not to stop driving to accomplish things. It's to keep doing that, but it's to understand the shift, the fundamental shift in perspective and where your focus wants to be. It's not on the external or what you're accomplishing. You want to be looking as much as you can at how you can come to love yourself simply for existing, simply for being as you are, that everything that you do is enough in and of itself. And anything that tells you differently is a lie, trauma, manipulation, or a program. Because when you shift this, when you fully shift this, you won't necessarily sit around and do nothing. You'll take actions and build and create things from a state of joy, from a state of love, from a state of like, oh my God, wouldn't this be fun? I'm so happy. I want to share this with everybody else. And while you're kind of clicking over from one thing to the next, it's okay to like still be running on some of the negative motivations. It's just that you want to understand that you're looking to shift more toward loving yourself as you are and being enough as you are. So much of our history has been based around trying to prove to the external that we're valuable. And one of the biggest things that I think the shutdown did is it was just the planet sort of resetting and wiping away all these old programs and patterns and bringing people more internally to understand that you don't need to do as much. You don't need to accomplish as much. You can do less and more at the same time. It's about your frequency, your vibration, and your internal state. So a good mantra is I am enough as I am. A good mantra is I am lovable just as I am, just for existing. And anything that told me different was essentially a lie or trauma, including, when we have abusive parents. They didn't abuse you because you weren't lovable. They abused you because they didn't believe they were lovable as they were. And let me know how this goes. Let me know if you have any questions, concerns, revelations, breakthroughs. Other than that, thank you so much. I look forward to next time, and peace.